Welcome to my stream. Nobody's here yet, but we're going to go ahead and do our disclaimer for the recording. I am not a licensed medical professional. Nothing I say is intended as health advice. Any major changes you make to your diet or any other aspect of your lifestyle is something you should check with a doctor before enacting in your own life. I'm also not a financial advisor. Nothing I say is intended as financial advice. Nothing I say is intended as a recommendation for an investment. I am also a law-abiding citizen. Nothing I say is an admission of guilt. Anything I say that's illegal is simply added for entertainment value, and it's no way rooted or based in reality. We got our first person here. Welcome, Melindy. Thank you for the good vibes, for the good stream. We'll see what happens. Oh, we got a couple more people showing up. We're doing stuff. Oh, wow. My iPad just informed me that at this time, this precise time, 2 years ago, I was in Slovakia with COVID, which was really wasn't my ideal way of starting off that journey in Europe, but it was nonetheless an experience. Looks like we're getting started off a little slow today. Well, it's only 12:01. I guess I've only technically I started a minute early, so we'll give it some time. So the downside, one of the less positive things that has happened, but is relevant, is that YouTube, YouTube is not been validating all my hours. I thought by now that we would be applying for monetization, but you know, the official count runs about 5 days behind the rest of the count, and now that the 5 days have caught up since I hit the total amount of hours according to the analytics, it's not actually moving in the same speed. So we still have 109 hours to go on the official count, though we're well over 100 hours past the count on the analytics. So it's a little bit frustrating, but we're gonna have to push through a couple more streams before we get the news and find out if this is our forever home or not, or as forever as social media is nowadays. I guess Google and YouTube is about as firmly rooted in the cyberspace as anything or any company. So let's hope. Asher Gray, welcome. Sam's sitting right here next to me. What's up, Sammy boy? He's mean mugging this. There's a tractor next to me, so he's like looking at the tractor. He's kind of like, you know what? I kind of want to fight this thing. It's just how he is. He's like, what are you doing, dude? All right. Let's get back in your chair. Anyways, so what's up, everybody? Where you guys at? What do you want to talk about? Melanie says, hi, Bruce. I was just thinking about you earlier, and there you are doing a stream. It was a last minute. It was an unexpected stream, but once I realized that there's at least 200 hours of watch time that has not been contributed to my validated monetization process, I decided that a weekly stream is just not quite enough to get us there. Now, I do plan on increasing stream frequency, but I am still actually on the fence about it. I don't know if I want to do a daily stream. That would obviously, once we hit the daily mark, I feel like it maybe is a hit and miss kind of thing. Because obviously, I need good questions to give good answers. I can't just, come on here every day and shoot something from the hip. I mean, maybe I could come up with something, but it'd have to dramatically change the format. It wouldn't be question and answer based anymore, which I like the organic aspect of. The other possibility, which I noticed actually seemed to have the greater effect overall, was the very long streams, the like 4-hour ones. Those, I've only done like 2 of those, but they definitely carried the bulk of the views lately. And I don't know if it just happened to be that those were especially long because those were especially action-packed and good streams, or if it just happens to be that something about the algorithm favors people who have been on for a long time. I really don't know how that works. But what's up, Marie? Wiggs wants the hair. Melanie says, why is YouTube not validating a lot of your hours? I don't know why. I don't have any direct content. That's the other thing about YouTube is they don't really give you much of a resource for reaching out to them and talking to them until you become monetized. And then you're in the cool kids club, and maybe you can get an answer from support at that point. But I think up until that point, you're just kind of you're still just a peasant, and you have to, just wait and grind out your little peasant hours to try to see what's up. You know what I mean? But we're so close that we're we're pretty much, we don't have a lot of room for complaining. You know what I'm saying? We just got to push through these last hours. So we'll see what's up. What's up, Raheem? Welcome back. Marie says, I'm glad to see the psychology topic in the Telegram group. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea too. That was actually Maya's idea. She brought it up that, sometimes, and very actually oftentimes, that, mental health issues tend to be our greatest limitation and setback in the realm of spirituality. And the reason why that tends to happen, I'm sure a lot of people realize that, but I'll go ahead and throw my 2 cents on it since we don't have a lot of questions going on right now, is that the reason for that is that most mental health issues in our present day lifestyle, as the world is, are rooted in the right side, logic and reasoning side of the brain. You know what I'm saying? It's rooted in ego. It's rooted in fear. So, even if you're not actively scared of something that's haunting you or giving you some kind of major problems, all your other negative emotions actually tie down into fear as well. Fear of not succeeding in something, fear of losing something, fear of something that might happen in the future, fear of something happening again that has happened in the past. It's actually pretty rare that anyone I mean, I guess everyone's got different situations. Maybe if you're like living in, a war zone or something right now, you might live in present day fear on a reasonable level that's rooted in reality. But for the vast majority of people, there's nothing really to be scared of at this moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, most of us don't have gunshots outside of our house. Most of us don't have, bombs going off. Most of us don't, most of us that have telephones and cell service, you would think would also have clean water and, food to eat. Very little of it's actually rooted in the moment of the reality. And, spiritual growth is, especially in the beginning, is largely related to, it has an inverse relation to how much you can detach from that side of your brain, that ego side of your brain. So I think it was a good addition to the group, because sometimes we just have to conquer that part first. You know what I'm saying? And actually, most often we have to conquer that part first, and everything else, once you conquer that part, just kind of like unfolds naturally. You know what I'm saying? So realistically, it's actually probably the most important part of the work we're doing for a lot of people. Some people don't have those issues. They've already gone past there, and they might be more or less in autopilot and just looking for techniques of how to get into a more meditative state, or how to have success with a larger proportion of their meditations, etc., etc. But most people just need to release their ego and their fear. Rahim Khan says, bro, your new content coming or not? I'm waiting. Well, I appreciate you waiting. I am trying to release more content. I really need to get the Starlink up and running. And that would make it so that I could probably stream on more like a daily or every other day basis, as well as upload more content, because the content is actually already filmed. It's already done. It's in the archive, but it's the uploading multiple gigabyte files, etc., that makes it kind of a pain in the booty to get the content up. So, that's why we've been really focused on this streaming thing, because this is something that I can do over a cellular connection most of the time, or over a, Wi-Fi parked next to somewhere kind of a situation. But when it comes to the really big files, it's hard. And I'm trying to get to the point to where we can get the Starlink up and running. And once the Starlink's up and running, everything else can unfold from there. Looks like we have an on-topic question. Adrian Villarreal says, not sure if this has been asked, but do you have any income streams, part-time gigs, or retirement money? Not really, no. I mean, I make a very humble amount on my fan page. Most of the other stuff that I was making all got basically demonetized because I wasn't active enough. And we're entering rough times, but we're hoping we're having faith. And there are some resources in my bio, since I don't have any kind of monetization access at the moment. So if anyone wants to help out, you're more than welcome. Let's see. Welcome, Joe Lucas. Just got here. We haven't really gotten too far, so you're still in the early section. We're looking for questions if you want to ask any. Raheem Khan says, bro, are you a happy person on planet Earth because as compared to our live, you enjoy your live we play with soap? I think, I'm not sure about the translation of that, but I think that you're saying, you're asking me if I'm happy with my life, while everyone else is, you know, working for fiat. And the answer is, if I'm misunderstanding that, it's okay. I'm sorry. But yeah, I enjoy my life so much. And honestly, if I was in the situation that I'm in, you know, financially and stuff, at any other part of my life, not even this situation, if I was in like 50% of the situation, not even 50, if it was 20% as bad as it is right now, at any other point in my life prior to my spiritual awakening, I would be stressed the fuck out. I would be freaking out. Now we are so deep into the code red. I honestly have no negative feelings at all. I feel amazing. Oh, you're just talking about girls? I'm not really interested in women right now. I mean, I'm still straight. If I was going to be interested in anyone sexually, it would be women, but you know, I can't really see a situation where I would want to involve a woman in my life right now. You know, if it was like a situation, you know, not even with me wanting, I wouldn't even ask a woman to involve herself with me right now, because I am, you know, I'm in the process of emptying my cup. I'm trying to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right? And it's really hard to have a relationship and an empty cup at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to make room for the love of God if you're already in love with a human. You know what I mean? The only way that that works is if you can see God in that human. You know what I'm saying? And while God is indeed inside us all, the degree to where to the amount in which it's reached the surface in us all is different. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not really trying, I'm not in like a situation, like I'm trying to remove the layers of myself that stop God from shining through me. You know what I'm saying? I don't have the excess energy to remove the layers from another person to get God to shine through. I mean, I'm doing my best through these streams and stuff, but I mean, as far as like a romantic relationship, you know, I more or less am going to hold out for somebody who has already done that work and to whom is already shining, you know. And if that ever comes around and creates a situation where we can shine even brighter together, that would be a beautiful thing, and I would love that. But it's not a priority because, well, prioritizing something like that would be, once again, living in the future. You know what I'm saying? That would be deviating from the present. Because that would be me wanting something which I don't have. You know what I'm saying? Currently, like my absolute cornerstone of existence is to be happy with whatever I have and to also have as little as possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would definitely like more funds and things to just lower my stress level. Whatever little bit of stress that is. You can never have too little. But ultimately, I really just want to get rid of all this physical crap that is clogging up my life and creating an anchor here in California. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be adrift. So that's where I'm at. Anyways, I'm going back to the chat. I'm not sure. I was maybe... Has being a convict restricted any international travel? That's a good question. Yeah, I can't go... I mean, I've never tried, but I'm pretty sure I can't go to Canada. Not that I would ever go to Canada while Trudeau is still sucking air over there, but yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure how that would play out in other countries aside from Canada, like Australia or New Zealand, I heard is also problematic. I definitely have like, I would probably have migrated to Europe a long time ago, if it wasn't for the restriction, but they don't really check it unless you're trying to get like a residency. It's once you try to get the residency, that's when it kind of messes you up. So it dramatically reduces the amount of places which I can seek residency. But I can still visit most places aside from Canada. Let's see. Bro, you are a happy person on the planet. Oh, you know. Melanie Z, fear, etc. are often all just thoughts. Oh yeah, fear, etc. are often all just thoughts. If we manage to simply notice the thoughts and let them pass by, or practice to have fewer thoughts through meditation, most psychological problems are over. Exactly. Just, if you stay in the moment, you're good. You know what I'm saying? Because all things come to pass. You know? And the things that don't come to pass, it's because we latched onto them. You know? Even if it's something we didn't want, something that we did caused it to stay. You know, actual nature is very fluid. It's always flowing. Things are always changing. If you just let it change. You know, it's when you start making fortifications and things, it gets more complicated. You know, a lot of people think that security means like to be rigid, to be everything's locked down. But for me, I find security in flexibility. You know, there's a lot to be said about the ability to act on something. Even if you don't do much. Maybe you're taking a Taoist approach like I do, and you know, you believe that the most virtuous thing that you can do is nothing. You know, because if you do nothing, everything gets done. And if you do nothing, nothing can go wrong. If you do nothing, you can cause no harm. And so, you know, if you do accept that, how do you survive? You know, how do I survive doing nothing? Well, the way to survive doing nothing is through flexibility. It's that you can do anything if such a opportunity would arise. You know, and if you want opportunities to arise from nothing, then all you have to do is be a yogi and continue trying to perfect yourself. Even if perfection is completely unattainable, which maybe it's not. Maybe that's just another one of those quit while you're ahead bullshit cliches that are trying to stop you from winning. But, you know, no matter how unobtainable perfection is, you should be striving for perfection. You should be striving to be a better person. You should be striving to have more skills, more abilities, you know, more things that have value, no matter what kind of store of value that the world is actively using to calculate that value, if that makes sense. Welcome, Franquita. Raheem retracted. Justin said, how did you have your spiritual awakening, and how do you stay within the vortex? Oh, those are two good questions. So I'm going to have to give you two answers. Okay, how did I have my spiritual awakening? It's something like my main focus through this whole process is reverse engineering that exact answer. There's 40 something hours of streams on the playlist on the topic of spirituality and enlightenment, to which I've been trying to answer that question. And I have been really super open with 90% of everything that's happened. There's been a 10% tile or so that I've had to keep to myself, you know, just because the spiritual process is a very personal process. But for the most part, I've been very open with that. And I don't actually know the answer to that question. But even though I am so interested in the topic, and I tend to be the kind of person that absorbs a lot of information very rapidly, I have made a conscious effort to isolate and partition my mind from my experiences regarding this whole thing, so that I can give, maybe someday I can give a more accurate answer to that. But you know, at the moment when it first happened, I was chanting the Om, which I think is, or I know is, a very big part of what unlocked everything for me. But I don't feel that it was a one-stop shop. I think without the rest of my life, especially some of the harder parts of my life, I don't think that that would have necessarily worked, or at least it wouldn't have worked the very first time, in theory. But you know, I never conformed. There was never a rule that I, you know what I'm saying, wasn't willing to break unless it was rooted in my own morals, values, and virtues. You know what I'm saying? Like, you couldn't, you know, I mean, it's not like I was ever in the military, but I wouldn't have done well in the military, because I never would have, there's no way, I've never been the type of person that would do something because someone else told me to. 100% of the time, I, you know what I'm saying, like, I'm the one-stop shop. I'm the first and the last to answer the question about anything that I'm going to do. Nobody can tell me to do something. Nobody can also tell me not to do anything. If I choose not to do something, it's because it's against my own morals, my own virtues, my own values. It's not because of the man of law. It's not because of some religion, something that was written in a book, or something someone long ago said was right or wrong. Everything's always been inside me. And so I've always just, you know, done whatever I thought was right. And not to say I've always been right. I've done a lot of things that were very, very, very fucking wrong. But I know that they're wrong because I did them, and I know how it made me feel afterwards. You know, so that's the first half of that, of how did I have the spiritual awakening. The short version is, I don't know. I chanted the Om, and I had a lot of suffering in my life, and never gave a fuck and did whatever I want, and I had a lot of sex. But how do you stay within the vortex? That is way harder. That is way harder. And I'm not going to lie, sometimes I come out of the vortex. But it's really just has to do with meditation. Like, you got to meditate like every day. And you got to you gotta strive for perfection every day. And you have to realize that man or woman, whoever, society, does not dictate what perfection is to you. You dictate what is perfection to you. So you decide, you strive for your version of perfection. And as long as you're always striving, it's all about progress. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna wake up tomorrow and be perfect, but you can make a little bit of progress every day. You know, it's like compound interest. Or if you want to, you know, let's break it down. I'm going to give you guys a valuable lesson on gambling. And you can apply this to any game that you play. You can apply this to the stock market. You can apply this futures, whatever, anything. Any kind of investment that you can make, you could apply this to, okay? You know, this is something, though, this is the root, basic lesson, the one free lesson I will give you about gambling. I'll give you no other lessons for free. If you want to learn to gamble, it costs, all right? But this lesson's free. You have two guys. They both have $100 to gamble with. It's a fairly humble amount of money. I would say most people that have gone to Vegas or Reno or something have probably gambled $100. So we're using $100 as a nice round number. Now, they both want to make the most out of their $100, right? And for simplicity's sake, just because it's the most simple game where nothing can go wrong, there's nothing you can do right, there's nothing, it's all mathematically even no matter what. We're going to play single zero European style roulette, right? So this is going to have about a 2.7% house edge against the player, right? And that's derived from the single zero, in which neither red nor black wins, right? But it's all mathematically equal. It doesn't matter if you bet on one number for 35 to 1 or 36 to 1 or whatever. And it doesn't matter if you bet on red or black. You know what I'm saying? It's always going to be an equal on a roulette wheel. It's all balanced, right? So let's just pick something easy, like red or black, odd or even, something that is almost 50% minus the 2.71% or whatever it is. So you got a almost, 47% chance of winning. And you're going to win 1-to-1 when you win, right? So you bet on black. And if it hits black, you're going to double your money, right? So one guy is going to bet $10. And the other guy is also going to bet $10. Right? And this guy right here is going to bet $10 every time, win or lose. And if he wins something, he's going to pick it up, and that's going to be what he won. Okay? And the other guy is going to bet his $10, but he's not going to pick up what he wins. He's going to let it ride. It's called letting it ride, right? And now they're both going to play. Right? Now, let's say if they both lose 10 times in a row, right? They both lost $100 in 10 spins. All right? But now let's say they both won 10 times in a row. The guy who bet $10 every time, equal bets, and picked up his money, is going to have profited $100. He's going to double his money. He's going to make the same amount that he would have made if he took the whole 100 and bet it at once and doubled up. Mathematically, it doesn't fucking matter. He was never going to win. But the other guy who knows the power of compound interest never picks up his money. And he wins 10 times in a row. Do you know how much fucking money that guy has? This guy made 100, and this guy is up $10,000. You know what I'm saying? He made $9,990 compared to this guy who made $90 in 10 spins. You see what I'm saying? Huge difference, right? So that's the power of fractional improvements, of just getting a little bit better, a little bit closer to perfection every day. You know what I'm saying? This doesn't only work in math and in money and shit like that. It also works in life. It works with your health. It works with spirituality. It works with everything. Now you can go get a handy dandy little calculator that's like, you know, your mortgage calculator online or whatever, but you can manipulate it so that you could see the compound interest of anything. And even if you did this with 1%, literally 1%, and you did it every fucking day, like, it's like, you know, incredible what would happen in a year. And what would happen in 10 years is like fucking phenomenally insane. Like, it's big numbers. You know what I mean? But the point being is that you can apply this to everything. You know what I'm saying? And the graph kind of looks like this. It doesn't raise very fast until it just goes whoop and it verts. Do you know what I'm saying? And so see, that's like where this is, like this kind of basic, just super basic knowledge is how I live my regular life too, is how I also realize that even at my lows, it's okay. Because I just make sure that I get fractionally better each day. And I know that maybe it doesn't seem like much is happening, but at some point you hit that inflection point and shit goes vertical. You know what I mean? And this is something that literally everybody can do, because there's no like realm in which this doesn't apply. If you strive towards perfection, whatever perfection means to you, at some point it will, and you make a little bit of progress every day, at some point it will go vertical and everything will be completely unrecognizable. You know what I'm saying? Like, the soft overcomes the weak. I mean, the soft overcomes the hard. You know what I'm saying? Going with the flows and a little bit of improvement each day is going to always defeat that which is rigid and unyielding and, you know, whatever. Anyways, sorry, that was a long thing. So, but it was a good question. Thank you for that, Justin. Shay Janowski, Bruce, only recently I decided to follow you, and I've obviously noticed the transition. Congratulations. I haven't caught up on how you have moved into this space. Can you give an overview on how it all came about? That's a great question. I will happily do that. The overview. Okay, so I did a quick overview on Instagram recently, but I'm going to go ahead and do one right now. It's probably been a while since I did a broad scale recap. Okay. So I'll do it. This will eat up a little bit of time, and I'm still getting to all the other questions, you guys, but this is a good one, so I'm going to go in on this. I know a lot of you have already heard most of this story, but here's the recap. 2017, I got hit by lightning. All right. We're still we're not sure if I actually got hit by lightning or if I threw the lightning bolt, but a lightning bolt happened nonetheless, and I got fucked up. Lost a large chunk of my memory. All right. Fast forward, you know, these were some of my more dimmer years. Long story short, ended up in a relationship that I had no business being in. Not that I even agreed to being in it, but nonetheless, I allowed someone to infiltrate my life. For the next few years, I was miserable, but I found solace in traveling. So I didn't want to be at home, so I would constantly try to be anywhere else, right? And at some point, I fell ill, right, during these travels. I don't know. I have some theories, but I'm not going to go too crazy into it. I did, though, have to dig a fucking microchip out of my arm at some point. But, I know it's getting weird, right? But, stay. Stop it. No. Don't do it, bud. Sorry, we got a little critter trying to jump in my lap. Don't do it. I'm telling a story, Sam. Stop. All right, so misery for some years, got sick. Finally, I went to Mexico with thinking that I was pretty sure that I only had a few months left to live. I had gone to a million doctors. I'd done full body MRI scans, full body CT scans, hundreds of blood tests. I was in the hospital for 5 days at some point. You know, I ran up a $170,000 bill that luckily my insurance took care of. You know, nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. So at some point, I just decided, you know what? It's time to go find some blue water, kick back, and just let it go. I went to Mexico. At some point, I was becoming more open-minded with things to try to heal myself. There was this amazing woman that I met in Mexico, whom was actually a fan prior to that, who did energy work. So I did something called Kundalini activation process. And the first time I did it, I wasn't really I don't really count that. But the second time that I tried it, I did it with a more open mind, and I was able to, during this thing, I was able to see the colors of my own chakras. But it was through touch. Like, she touched me on each chakra, and like the vision behind my eyes would change color each time. I thought it was pretty cool, some kind of a interesting trick. I didn't know what to think about that. I also noticed that when she was standing over me with my eyes closed, that I could see the shape of her body, or her aura, which was green, right? At that point, I really didn't even know what a chakra was. I didn't know that they had colors. But at this moment, after that, I became interested. So I Google, this is the moment when everything changed. I go, chakras on Google. And of course, it brings up the thing that we've all seen a million times, like a little outline of a body with the colors of the different chakras. And I was like, blown away, because those were the colors I seen, and those were the places where she touched me when I seen those colors. So in my mind, something just clicked at that moment where I said, this shouldn't be possible. I've clearly been missing something. Like, there's something that I didn't believe in before, which now I'm a believer. Or I've seen it with my own eyes more than being a believer. So, so that kind of sparked my interest in the subject, or opened my mind to more possibilities. I did that process a few more times. I went and did that again, and the next time I did it, my body started like moving on its own without being touched or anything. Like, this time she didn't even touch me. And my body just kind of twisted up into this weird like yoga position, to the point where my back foot was almost touching the back of my head. Keep in mind, with no one touching me. And I wasn't a flexible person. Part of my ailments at the time was that my joints were like stiffening up and like were all fucked up, and that was part of the thing that was wrong with me. Anyways, just with this woman waving her hands over me, my body on its own starts doing this weird yoga position, and my whole spine just goes the full crack all the way down. And and for the first time in 2 years, I walked out of there with zero pain, like that, instant. I mean, when it cracked, it was gone. It was done. Fucking healed. So at that point, I'm really starting to get going. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even believe it. So I did that one more time. The last time I just cried and threw up, the Buddha sign. And then I went back from Mexico, and I was at home. This was, I don't know, maybe it was quite a bit later. It was a lot of time went by. And there's actually a post on my Instagram where it says, if you scroll down, it says, caffeine withdrawal, headache, and overnight hair growth. Well, the night before that picture was posted, I was just working out, 10-pound weights, doing high rep, sets of 100 shoulders. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that is a relevant detail, but that's the details. All right? Reps of 100 shoulders. I started feeling this feeling that I recognized from the other times when I did the Kundalini thing. It was like a feeling, it like starts off in the gooch, right? And so I started getting this feeling, and I was like, oh, I recognize this. And I had read a little bit about Kundalini after that because I was so interested in it at that point. And so I knew that you were supposed to raise it upwards. So I just stood there, put the weights down, stand there with my eyes closed just to feel this thing. And what I noticed, as soon as I closed my eyes, I could see gold hands holding a little white ball of light. And keep in mind, I'm not like trying to envision this. At this time, I never even heard of light body. I was really, really, really super uneducated on the whole thing. But nonetheless, I closed my eyes and I can see fucking gold hands as clear as day. Like if you shut off all the lights and my eyes were open and you had glowing golden hands in a dark room, I could see it as clearly as I could with my eyes open in a dark room, glowing hand. You know what I'm saying? Like it would look absolutely real. And more than that is that I found that I had control over these hands, and that I could like move this ball of light around inside of me. And not only that, but I could feel it moving around inside me. And like I could kind of feel it on this like little track that kind of went, like up my spine and then into my chest. And then, but every time I would bring it up to my mouth, I would get nauseous. It was like, it made my tongue feel like my tongue was swollen, like I was like gagging kind of. So I brought it up, doing the thing, but I kept getting nauseous. So I'm like, ugh. So I had to lay down because I thought I was going to throw up, right? So I lay down, close my eyes again, and I can see the hands again. They're still there. So I'm doing it, and I'm trying to push it up, but there's this like blockage, like right here at my cheekbone. Anyways, I push. Eventually I succeed in pushing this ball of light into my head, right? And at that moment, I seen like every color of the fucking rainbow flashing, like all kinds of crazy shit. And I had this huge like braingasm, like most intense feeling I've ever probably felt. Like, I mean, it's like, I had feeling like that before, but only from like having sex on mushrooms. And this was more intense and without anything. And so I had the braingasm, and I fell asleep for probably 13, 14 hours, maybe 17 hours. I forgot how long it was, but it was a super long time because it was like early in the day, and I woke up the next day whenever I posted that photo on Instagram, right? This says the caffeine withdrawal, headaches, and overnight hair growth. It has the dates as well. So, you know, I woke up the next day, and the reason why I took that photo is because I noticed like my eyebrows and everything had grown like substantially overnight, and I looked all like kind of rejuvenated. And I was like, whoa, what the hell happened? Anyways, so now fast forward, well, I started going through some, I think what most people go through is they start worrying about their mental health a little bit. I started getting like a lot of synchronicities, and suddenly I started like thinking about some weird things that else had happened in my life, that now I'm seeing them in more spiritual light. And started remembering like I started to remember a past life or other past lives, multiple past lives. I was like tripping, right? At that point, it was not stable like it is now. You know what I'm saying? I was really whatever. I started looking in used bookstores trying to get answers, and I was buying the weirdest books that I was just drawn to, and they would like contain answers. It was really weird. I was like in some kind of like self-leading alternate reality thing. I don't know. It was very weird. And so eventually that stabilized. And you know, I had become a fan of Sadhguru, if anyone knows who that is. But I had become a fan of Sadhguru because at the time I was doing some experimental farming techniques in the desert in Vegas. Because I have a small farm in California that someday I'm going to possibly, you know, work myself instead of leasing it out. And so I was kind of, you know, I've been trying to educate myself in the meantime. So Sadhguru did this whole save soil thing where he drove around on a motorcycle to like every country and taught them about regenerative farming. So I became interested in Sadhguru through that, and that's how I got the introduction to the Om, right? And so I watched a video about how to do the Om properly by Sadhguru, and something about it just like resonated with me, right? Like as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is substantial. And so you know, was going through like this whole thing where I got out of that relationship that was, you know, like last February or March, not this last one, but the one before that, over a year ago. And I decided I had already been retired from the industry for about 3 years, because I retired originally because of the COVID test. I didn't want to do the COVID test every 3 days, which is what they were making us do, and I didn't want to take the shot either. So I retired and didn't work for 3 years. But I was investing and doing a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going to go into it, but things were good. Through that time, it wasn't a stress for me to retire. I had other sources. So I finally got out of that relationship that I was literally like, I tried to get out of for so long. Like I begged to get out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I was held up morally, because I felt that something bad was going to happen if I took my hands off the wheel. And so I way tortured myself for way too many years for the sake of another person, just because I couldn't live with the idea of what I predicted and foreseen happening if I was to dip out. I finally created a situation after many years where I felt that I could retract and nothing was, you know, on me, that I would be karmatically absolved from that point. So once I did that, I got away, and then I decided to go back to work. So I put out a few calls for production work, and I landed the coach thing, if anyone's been following the coach thing. So I got 20 scenes for the coach thing. It was a pretty big reintroduction to the industry. It literally even allowed me to like get back into shape and everything, because it's like, you know, you don't really realize how much exercise you get doing what I did for over 10 years until you stop doing it and then start doing it again. You're like, damn, like, this is work. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyways, long story short, the scenes, I got to do my own casting. I got a good, you know, decent budget. Like, everything was good. So 16 scene, you know, every scene was good. Like, I really enjoyed working with all these girls. And also I hadn't had a lot of like interaction with women comparatively to the rest of my life for like a while, right? Because I gone through the breakup and wasn't really open to dating too much. You know, there's more to it, but overall I would say that just women temporarily lost me due to a combined effort of multiple parties to kind of turn me off to that whole situation. So for the first time, I was kind of experimenting with celibacy. I also was trying to quit smoking weed and quit drinking caffeine. I was going through a lot of purification process, but not with any kind of spiritual goal in mind. It was just like I didn't want to be a slave to anything. I didn't want to be addicted to anything. I didn't want even coffee. Like I wanted to be free of everything, period. Like, I got free of the chick. I wanted to be free of everything else. I didn't want nothing holding me. So I'm going through this whole purification process, but again, not as a spiritual thing, as more of like a physical thing, like trying to really focus on my health. I only eat organic, you know, etc., etc. And I'm driving, so 16 scenes into that, I had this big office in LA that was my studio or whatever, and you know, I was like moving all my stuff slowly to LA, one trip at a time throughout the production, to get all my stuff to LA and whatever. I was setting up shop, you know what I mean? I got the office first, and then I was going to work on more permanent other, you know, living situation after that. 16 scenes in though, I'm driving to Vegas to go do literally the last storage run, and I started chanting the Om, I don't know, somewhere like around Pasadena. You know what I'm saying? So I started chanting the Om in Pasadena, and I was really into, I missed a part. So actually, I went to it was my second ever or third ever yoga class. Like a week before, I went to a Bikram yoga class, and I did this super hardcore, like power yoga, the weights, hot, and all this stuff. And it was my second time ever. The first one I went and did yin yoga. Second time I was like, oh, that was too easy. So I went and did the hardest one, and I ended up tapping out like an hour in. And it was an hour and 45-minute class, right? So I left 45 minutes early, got totally broken off by the power yoga people. And then I got sick. I thought that it was COVID or something from being in the big class full of sweaty people breathing and stuff. But I think in retrospect, I think it was actually more of like an energy sickness, because I've experienced that multiple times since then. Like, I usually, before a big upgrade, I actually do get a fever and start getting like lower back pain. And then that usually develops into a fever, which eventually develops into like a spiritual breakthrough. But I was sick for like a week or something, and towards the end of it, I started feeling better right before I left to the Vegas. And so I started feeling better like 2 days before that, and I actually started astral projecting. So, and I was doing it on purpose, actually. I think I had read something about it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try that. And I had success with it 2 days in a row before when I drove to Vegas, right? So I was astral projecting, and every time that I would be out, though, I'd be flying around doing my thing, and all of a sudden I would get like sucked back into my body, and when I'd get sucked back, I'd be like I was like gasping for breath because I didn't have it's like I wasn't breathing when I was out. So I was like, okay, I think I'm good on the astral projecting thing until I can figure out how to like breathe while I'm doing it. And so then I did the Vegas thing. So I'm going to Vegas. Around Pasadena, I start chanting the Om. Well, as I'm passing through Death Valley, you know, I think it's like whatever, either was right before or right after Baker. This light. Well, first my car started. I started hearing this noise that started as a little ringing, and it got louder and louder. And then I realized that it was like not just ringing, it was actually like music. It was like harps. Like it literally sounded like angels playing harps. Literally angel music, right? And these harps got louder and louder and louder till my whole car was vibrating. And then this gold light like went into the back of my head, and I could feel it like pour down my spine, like this super pleasant feeling. And it went all the way down, you know, into that gooch area, and then it came back up and like erupted out of my mouth and my eyes and my chest, to the point where like I could feel the warmth coming out of my mouth. And when I looked in my rearview mirror, I could see like gold lights like shooting out of my eyes. But I was also like giving off light. Like the whole inside of the car was glowing, and there was like sparkles and shit going everywhere. And I'm like shooting laser beams out of my eyes, and fucking I'm hearing the fucking angels fucking playing, everything's vibrating. And all of a sudden, just fucking a lot of information, just boom, download, instant. Like, I mean, force fed the whole history of existence and everything that this is, the Matrix, and you know, the fact that the main takeaway though was that I was gonna return back to where I came from prior to the existence of this world, and that I've been here for a very long time, and that this is the end. You know what I'm saying? And so after that, I'm talking to the angel. She's explaining everything. Like, it's really, really out there, right? So I get super tired after this whole experience. I pull over to a truck stop in the middle of Death Valley, and I go to sleep. Well, the next morning, I wrote a poem, and then I went to sleep. So I went to sleep a little bit after midnight. So when I went to sleep, it was the 12th, right? Well, in the morning, when I woke up, I looked in the mirror, and I go, what the fuck? Like, because I literally looked like 10 years younger, at least to me. I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, I'm completely rejuvenated. And I had a picture from the night before. I'm like sitting here looking at it like, what? Like, how did that happen? Right? Well, I didn't notice till later. I looked at the picture I took in the morning. I thought it was 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock the next morning. It was on the 14th. So I literally slept for like 36 hours or something at a truck stop, and then woke up like 10 years younger. I was like, what is going on? And also, like, my inner monologue was gone. It was like, there's nothing going on in my head, just total silence. If I had a question or something, I'd just ask, and Angel would chime in some answers. It was like it was insane, like totally different, like that most peace I had ever experienced at that point in my life. And for like 2 weeks, it stayed like that. Well, after that, I, like I said, I was 16 scenes into a 20 scene thing. The last 4 scenes still went really good, but I became kind of obsessed with quitting coffee and quitting smoking weed and all this other stuff. And the caffeine thing was really super hardcore. Like, I slept for like 6 weeks. Yeah, I just kind of, at some point, I just decided, I'm not, well, things progress from there. So at some point, I don't know, like a month and a half later, there was, at that point I was still like thinking, like, is there any way I can connect to that again? Like, I'm just going, like, is that it? Like, was that enlightenment? Like, is there anything more? Can I do it again? Can I stay in that state? Like, I was really kind of obsessed in that regard, right? Nothing else really mattered to me anymore. Like, work didn't matter, money didn't matter, like nothing mattered. I just wanted to feel that light again. Like, I didn't know if it was even possible, if it's just that's what happens one time in your life and that's what they're talking about when they say enlightenment. Like, I had no clue. I thought maybe, but the most of me really thought that was it. Like, that was the best thing that could happen in your life, period. Like, nothing else can ever challenge that. Like, that was the meaning of life. Like, at that point, I thought, like, I did it. Like, there's nothing else that can fucking compare. And I was very wrong. Because, you know, it was, I don't know, a month and a half later. I hadn't listened to music for like 6 months, keep in mind. My Spotify Wrapped came out. And so I decided to listen to music for the first time in like 6 months. And so I'm listening to like my top jams of the year before. I'm rocking out. I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm just doing my normal thing and whatever, everything's good. And I go and I park in this parking lot and I just like hang my head out the window, listen to music, like boom, and I'm looking up at the stars, and I just decided to do a couple ohms. So I start chanting the ohm. Like that, right? So I just maybe 2 or 3 of those, and all of a sudden, like, my vision, and this happened to me the time before too, like when I was driving and I was then the thing started glowing and all that, I also had like eagle vision. Like, I could like cast out my vision super far, and I was like reading license plates in the dark, like super far ahead of me, right? But it wasn't like, you know, with a camera, when you like zoom in with a camera and it looks like the image gets closer to you. It was like the opposite of that. It was like I got closer to the thing. It was really weird. But anyway, so I start having the vision thing again. But this time I'm looking at the stars and shit. And like, I'm literally like looking, and instead of seeing just like stars and whatever in the sky, I'm like seeing whole galaxies. Like, instead of it just being a star, it's like I could see the whole spiral galaxy of like every galaxy. Like, I'm looking up at the sky and it's just all galaxies. Like whole systems, I can see them in like super HD. I bust a couple ohms, and then next thing I know, it's like I'm growing. Like, I got super big. And it's like I became Jupiter. I don't know. It's really weird. I don't know why I felt like it, but it's like I feel like Jupiter is like the eye of Odin, or the all-seeing eye that's mentioned in so many different religions and all that stuff. But it's like I got the all-seeing eye. It's like all of a sudden I'm big. I'm looking down at the earth. I can see it from above. Like, it's super tiny, like almost like I could hold it in my hand. And at the same time, I could experience every human being on the entire planet, like, simultaneously. I could see through all their eyes. I could feel everything they could feel. I could feel their emotions, you know, whatever. And I just had this feeling of like love that I never in my mind could have ever imagined loving anything as much as I loved the earth and everybody in it. As that moment that I'm looking down at it and seeing through everybody's eyes simultaneously, I'm just going, it's just this level of love that is so intense. And I'm talking, this was for like 4 hours long, keep in mind. The light thing was like for 7 minutes. This is like for 4 hours, I'm like fucking literally like just in the throes of ecstasy, like as if I took a whole handful of the best Molly on the planet. That's the only way I can think of explaining it, not to like promote any kind of substance use or anything, but of anything I've ever experienced, that was the closest thing that ever like reminded me of this feeling that I had in my heart and my throat. But it was like, you know, if you would have had that feeling on Molly or something, you would be afraid you were going to have a heart attack. Like in this sense, I'm like, I'm so healthy. I'm going to live forever. Like, I'm just like glowing out of my chest and my throat, right? And again, that was like another rejuvenating thing. Is like, if there was anything left in my body that needed healing, like it healed during that time. And yeah, just this fucking feeling of just love and like seeing through everything and loving everybody so much, right? And again, this is probably for like, you know, another 3 weeks, maybe even a month afterwards, I'm like back into that state of almost no internal monologue, no ego, just like fucking loving everything, loving everybody. Like the only weird thing about it was like after that I had so much control of my emotions that I could feel any emotion that I wanted any time. If I wanted to be like giddy happy like a child that got a fucking toy for the first time, I could feel that feeling. If I wanted to be sad, I could feel the sad. If I wanted to be in love, if I wanted to, like anything, any emotion that I wanted to feel, I could feel it, and it would like give me power. I don't know how to explain. And so that answered my question of, is there more? Can we do this again? Well, I didn't connect with the light again, but what I did was even, I mean, in a way, it was even bigger. It was, you know, 4 hours versus 7 minutes, and extreme pleasure, like even more than like that was pleasurable, but, and maybe that taught me more, like, and I've never learned more than I learned in that 7 minutes, but I mean, as far as like pleasure and like insight, the other thing was in a sense greater. Like, you know, the first thing dispelled my fear of death because I knew that I was immortal, and I knew that, you know, reincarnation is whatever, and I knew that I'm going to a better place after this, that I finally escaped and that I don't have to come back here. I didn't know that I was trying to escape, but nonetheless, to find out that I did was very, you know, brought me a lot of peace. And then, you know, at that point, I also realized, like, okay, there's a lot more to this whole spirituality thing, because there's things that you can't be told. You know what I'm saying? Like that whole light thing with the 7 minutes, that told me a lot about the nature of like what this is. You know what I'm saying? That it's more or less like a dream or a simulation or something like that, but that it's also kind of like a punishment in a sense. But it's not like a straight punishment. Like the point of the punishment is that you learn to thrive here. You know what I'm saying? Once you learn to thrive here, then, you know what I'm saying, you get to come back. But you know, it made me realize that there's a lot more to it. And so that you couldn't be put into words. You know what I'm saying? Like it like crams in the big file. You get all the information, and you got someone explain it for a minute. It takes literally weeks, months to unpack that and you know what I'm saying, start to understand it all. But there's some things that you have to see yourself. And seeing through every human's eyes simultaneously, in the whole earth, and every action, good, bad, indifferent, everything in the middle, simultaneously, and feeling nothing but love about it is it's something that can't really be explained. Like, I'm trying to explain it now. I've tried to explain it a lot in the past, but you can't explain it, you know. And the reason why it happens is because that's the only way to understand it, is to see it, to taste it, to feel it, you know what I'm saying, to love it. You can't really understand it without actually doing it. If I said I could see through everybody's eyes simultaneously, you know what I'm saying, most people are going to be like, you lost your damn mind, Bruce. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is that for a moment I did. And that allows me, even though like right this moment, I can't remember everything that I've seen, and I can't go and access your eyes right now, you know, as we speak. Maybe that's something that could be developed in the future, but at this moment, I can't do it. This exact second. Like, or maybe I can, I just don't know how. But I haven't been able to recreate that. But the empathy that came with that, of understanding how to see everything in the world through everybody's different eyes, to understand the reality of the scope of perception, like, that's still there, and I understand that completely differently now, and it gives me just a much greater degree of empathy than I ever even imagined possible. Now, I didn't, you know, you would think that would be enough, But it didn't stop there. So as I started developing more, getting more comfortable with what was happening, you know, at some point there was like a whole thing that I did by accident. I was trying to heal my father after the light thing, and I accidentally like did this thing called, the Taoists call it the thunder palm. Where literally like I shot like a shock wave out of my palms. Okay, and this is getting weird, right? I didn't mean to do that, and I was really afraid that I like hurt him when I did it, because like I put my palms, it's like this huge shock wave like shot through him like I was the Street Fighter, right? But that opened my eyes to the possibility of like, okay, there's things happening, abilities that are coming together that didn't exist before. So at some point, you know, something happened. He was in the hospital. I wasn't actually there in person, but this was after these other events that I just highlighted. I thought maybe, oh, you know, I'm going to try to heal him like remotely. You know what I mean? Like, okay, everything, like if I can see the whole world, I should be able to affect the whole world, right? Well, I'm trying to do that, and I'm meditating, and I'm, you know, having a good meditation, and I'm thinking maybe something's happening, and I don't know, I activated some other chakra, and I end up springing this super crazy high fever, like instantly, to the point that my skin is steaming. It was cold out, but literally my skin had steam coming off of it. That's how much heat that I'm putting off. So now I'm in a fever state, like basically, you know, you could say that I was hallucinating. It was probably hot enough to be, you know, cooked to that point. But I literally looked down, and there's like a little ball of plasma like sticking out of my chest right here, like a sun, like half of a sun protruding from my stomach, right? And that had some crazy that, you know, it didn't, I don't know if it did anything for what I was trying to do, but nonetheless it activated this thing, and it completely changed like my digestion. Like I need way less food now. A lot of things have changed. I'll spare you the details, but all for the better, right? And also I was able to like feel my chakras like way more acutely after that, like because I felt like that whatever I ignited was like charging up the chakras that were adjacent to it. Like my heart and my sacral were like pulsing or beating with that that like solar plexus energy sun thing, right? And even more so that I noticed that if I was to meditate on it, that I could expand it all the way down to the root and to my throat as well. But it was like less, do you know what I'm saying? Like strong, like, you know what I'm saying? But they would all like kind of beat in this weird pattern. And even when I was like seeing the thing, like it's like almost like I was like, also too, I had the visual, and it was like the visual of like the close-up of the sun, like little weird octagon things that were like, looked like plasma, but they were like beating in some kind of like intelligent way. Very weird, right? So that was one of the weirder and less pleasant things, but it doesn't even stop there. So at some point, the craziest thing of all the things happened, and not to say that any one is less than the other, and I'll also give some theory about all these things afterwards, but they all teach you something different. So it's like it's building like a bigger picture, and what that picture is in my eyes is it's showing you what it's like to be God. It's showing you, you know, most people question like, oh, how could God exist if all these bad things and this and blah blah blah, all this other stuff happens? And you can't explain that. Nobody can explain and say, oh, this is why horrible things happened even though there's God, without experiencing what it's like to be God. And once you experience that, like you can also apply it to your regular life. Like what do you do? Let's say like for me, like here's a good example. I love dates, eat them all the time, right? What, you know, you got to think about, like, you know, you eat a date, what do you do with the pit? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different options. You can throw it out, You know what I mean? That would be the worst option. You can make sure that it makes it into the dirt and gives it a little chance. That's another option. You know what I'm saying? You can make sure that it gets into dirt near a river. That's another option, maybe a little better. Or you could even go as far as to like sprout this yourself, get it started, stick it into the ground where it needs to go, and give it the very best shot possible, right? In that sense, you're God to this seed. You know what I mean? It's a way of thinking about things that is maybe easier to compartmentalize without having those experiences. But this is just like one way of thinking that has changed for me since having those experiences. Just an example. Maybe that's off topic, but now the last thing that happened, I thought that I was kind of hitting like a plateau, and I also felt like very ungrounded from all these experiences. Obviously, like you can really get out there in your mind when you start having like godlike experiences. Well, so I started focusing on grounding every day, in touch, every day on the beach, every day doing yoga, every day stretching, every day meditating, lots of grounding, right? And I'm doing that all the time. And at some point, I started feeling that like energy sickness again. And I actually did a whole stream on here, like, is the ascension flu real? Which I'll tell you in retrospect, that was kind of part of the ascension flu, I think, because that's what I was experiencing. And to really weird thing is, because I'm coming from a more scientific background than a spiritual one, is that I started noticing some issues with like my sacral chakra that were lining up with what they say are issues with the sacral chakra. Well, I changed my diet to a more Ayurvedic one to try to deal with that, and that ended up causing this whole energy sickness, I think, etc., but eventually led to a breakthrough. Well, I got invited to this Hindu temple by this random woman that was hitchhiking, really weird, with a cat, very witchy. So I opted to go. I'd never been to a temple before, but I'm somewhat interested in religion now. Not that I plan on never taking a religion, but I believe that a lot of the things that they teach in religions, regardless of whatever their motives are, I find to be good spiritual practices. And so I'm more interested, and I thought, oh, I'll go check it out. So I go to this Krishna consciousness temple. And this is at a point where I really am, like I said, feeling plateaued. Like I had all these crazy experiences. It's hard to imagine anything more than what had already happened. I'm grounding, whatever. I had no expectations from going to this temple. Anyway, so I go there, and strangely enough, so this is for this guy, I'll give him the props, Prabhupada. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I always struggle with his name, but it's for this guy. And, I go into the temple, and for the first time ever, I guess apparently it was the first time ever. I'd never been there before, but first time ever, they let his female disciples talk. And there was these 4 women sitting up in the front of the temple, and they were talking about their experience with Prabhupada, their most fondest memories. It was the first time the women are talking. And they love this guy so much. And keep in mind, this happened back in the 70s. The guy's been dead for a long time. And they're still they love him so much still. And the movement's still so strong. Their temple is strong. It's big. They got tons of, the movement's still there. It's like going on way past the man himself who started it, right? And something that just touched me about that, because it kind of reminded me of some of my followers and stuff. Not to say that it's the same, but it's like just the love that they had for him, and the way that it continued past his own physical his body's expiration point. It just touched me, and it made the whole thing matter to me. It really meant something to me. So I did the whole thing. I lit the candle for the yogi, and I I ate the what's it called, prashad, or I forgot the meal. You know, I did the whole thing, and it really mattered. And I was thinking about the guy for a couple days afterwards. Well, 2 days afterwards, I was in the park, and I decided that I was just going to do a little, I had just gone for a hike with the dog. The dog was cooling off. I decided to pace around in the park. And I used to always pace, like in prison, and even when I got out of prison, it was like a habit. People that know me personally, like, know this about me, that I pace, especially if I'm like thinking about something. Like the people that used to work for me used to call it they say that I was getting ready for a brain blast, like Jimmy Neutron. Now, I've never seen Jimmy Neutron, but this is how they compared my pacing, was that I would start pacing whenever I was getting ready for a Jimmy Neutron brain blast. It was usually something more technical, like, but, you know, I used to, you know, come up with these things. Oh no, my phone's gonna, come on, phone. Fucking charge it. There we go. Jimmy Neutron brain blast, right? So it's usually more like, you know, on engineering type things for the farm and things like that. But nonetheless, now, you know, I didn't used to be a meditator or even know what meditation was, but I realize now that pacing was my form of meditating, because I wouldn't even be there. I'd be like gone. I'm seeing numbers and whatever, you know, I'm that meme with the math going on, like when I'm in pacing mode, right? So I thought about that, and I was like, yeah, you know, I'm going to combine them. Instead of thinking about anything, I'm going to pace, and I'm going to think about nothing, right? So I'm pacing, I'm meditating, I'm in like a moving meditation. It's like, I went right in. It was really good. I was like, damn, this is good. But the monk was still in my mind. And I felt his presence like come into my mind. And at some point. But first, something happened before that. So I'm walking, I'm in this deep, you could say at some point I entered a state of samadhi while walking, right? Which is a deep, deep meditation. And I'm looking around, and I just start seeing God in everything. Every tree is God. Every blade of grass is God. The dirt is God. The air is God. The sky is God. I'm just looking around. Everywhere I look, I'm just in like total shock and amazement. Like, I'm like, it's God. Like, it is God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really, really, really got it. I got it at that point, right? And you know, so I'm seeing God in everything, and then the monk or the yogi, like, I feel his presence come into my mind, right? And he's like, he tells me, he's like, your real name is this. I'm not gonna say it, but he tells me my real name. It's something in Sanskrit. And at the moment when he told me that, it transformed from, instead of seeing like God in everything, I started seeing myself in everything, right? Like the line between, like, it's like I was seeing God in everything, and then it's like it like merged with me, and I started seeing myself in everything, right? And then when that happened, I like merged into the earth. And it's like I became part of the earth, you know, and it's like I could feel the entire planet as my body. Not like when I was looking down. When I was looking down, the other experience completely different. It was just only the humans. I could see and feel all the humans. But this time now, it was like the opposite of that. I could see and feel all the animals, all the plants, the actual planet itself, the water, the sky, like, I could feel what it was like to be Earth. To the point where, like, I'm looking at a tree, and the tree is literally, it's like looking at my own arm. I don't know how to explain. Like, there was no difference in my mind of looking at a tree as looking at my own arm. Like, it was part of me. And even when I was having the God whole thing, and I've said this before, and people think I'm joking, but it's kind of funny. It's like, I'm walking, I'm seeing God in everything, and I even remember thinking, I was like watching my feet as I'm walking. I'm like, everything's God. I was like, even if I step in dog shit, it's God, right? I was at a dog park, so I was like, oh, I hope I don't step in dog shit. I was like, even if I step in dog shit, it's God. At that moment, I stepped in dog shit with my bare feet. And there was no dog shit there. It just appeared underneath my foot. I'm literally watching exactly where I'm walking. To avoid the dog shit, it still happened. And I just laughed. Because I realized that's how much control I have over the situation. Like, that I'm literally manifesting my reality to the point that dog shit will appear underneath my foot if I think about dog shit. You know what I'm saying? And so this was my deepest state of samadhi yet, because it ended up lasting for 3 days. So I thought that that was it. Like, oh, I merged with the earth and, you know, as above, so below. I got that whole upgrade, all that. Well, I slept good that night, like I always do. And when I woke up, I was still in the state. And I was like, whoa, I was like, this is permanent. I was like, I'm in it. Like, I thought that, like, you know, that was it. Like, I was like, I finally merged. And then, so I'm down at the beach. I'm doing my grounding thing. I'm pacing. I'm doing the, you know, walking, pacing, moving meditation. And I'm staring at the ocean. And I'm just going, oh, it's so beautiful, right? And suddenly I got this weird memory. And the thing is that I've not been really that interested in Hinduism, even though I did go to that temple. It wasn't even it was a Krishna temple. Like, you know, I haven't read Vedas or a lot about it, but suddenly I just, in my mind, the name Shakti appears. And I'm looking at the earth and I'm looking at the ocean and everything, and I realize that it's Shakti, this goddess, Shakti. I don't know how I knew about her or what her name was or anything about her. But suddenly, the whole earth was Shakti, and I remember, it wasn't like I fell in love. It's that I like remembered that I've always been in love. You know, like I remember that is my soulmate, is Shakti, and that she's right here in front of me. And I just broke down crying. I mean, I have never, the only time I ever cried that hard was when my best friend died. And, you know, that was brief comparatively. I literally cried nonstop for 5 hours, holding the sand, looking at it, seeing Shakti in my hands, and just crying, I love you, I love you, I love you, for 5 hours until I passed out. I woke up to the dog barking at a park ranger. Park ranger's like, you can't have the dog on the beach. I'm like, okay, I left. I'm driving around. I'm still crying, looking at mountains and shit, like, oh, I just love her. So I go park in this other spot, and then this like rage overcomes me. And I'm just like, think like, if anyone tried to hurt Shakti, what would I do? And I realized I would do anything. It was like, I was like, there's no end to my wrath if somebody will hurt Shakti. And I felt so much shame come over me for that. And I realized that it wasn't the first time that these are memories, and that I realized that that I was being punished for exactly this type of thought process, for exactly this thing. And when I realized that, I realized also that I repent, for lack of a better word. And that I felt bad about that wrath. And at that moment when I realized that feeling, absolute peace came over me. Like, so much peace. And I just felt compelled to like go like this. And I think that my hand chakras like opened up at this point, because from that moment forward, if I put my hands together like this and meditate on it, I feel something like an energy like spark through my whole body, like a column of energy that goes from my stomach and like shoots up through the top of my head, like, and I can feel it outside, like it passes through the top of my head, and I can feel it when I meditate on this. And I have this weird visual of like a golden helix, double helix, like DNA kind of. And So I yeah, so that happened. And at that moment, I was like, oh, I'm at peace. And this is the craziest thing of all. Well, not the craziest thing, but really interesting thing that happened is, so I'm like watching the surfers, right? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna go surfing. Now I'm in peace. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Forget all that other stuff. I'm going surfing. And then, like, inside my head, I was like, damn, this is pretty scary looking. Like, there could be sharks out there. And then in my mind, it goes, I don't know where this came from. It was like, it felt like an outside thought. It was like, don't worry, the dolphins will protect you. Dolphins? I look out, and dolphins start coming from every direction along the horizon. I'm like, what? Am I hallucinating right now? I'm going like, what is going on? Am I seeing this shit? And so they're in the background of the horizon, like swimming up and down the horizon, jumping out of the water. I'm going, is this fucking real? And so in my mind, I go, come closer to the dolphins. I'm going, am I communicating with these guys? It's like, come closer. And they did. Next thing I know, they all came and were like centered right on my window, like way close to the shore. And they're jumping out of the water in single file line, throwing their tail flat at me, like waving their tail at me, one at a time in a single file line. Totally unnatural behavior. And I'm going, I've got to be hallucinating, right? Like, I'm tripping. That's when all of a sudden one of the surfers noticed and starts pointing, and all the surfers are turning and like pointing and looking at the dolphins jump out in a single file line directly centered on my window and waving their tails at me. Crazy, right? And then after that, it was like every time I'd be on the beach, the dolphins would be there. Every time. Like every time I'd go in the water, a seal would like swim up to me. Like, it was like really crazy. So that's kind of where we're at now. Like, now, you know, that lasted probably like almost 2 months. I stayed in that state before it started dwindling down again. And at this point, I'm starting to get, you know, like, I do believe at some point, like, I know that I can't understand without actually having the experience, but I'm starting to piece together like the reality of like how deep this whole thing goes. And, you know, I do think that it's possible at some point that it will just stick and that you just stay unified with God, and that's what we're looking to attain with all this. So that's why I don't care about anything else in life other than my spirituality, because I see what is possible. And having unity with God, even just tasting it for a minute, is worth it. But to have permanent, total unity with God, there's nothing in this world that is a more worthy goal. So that's where we're at right now. So I'm going to go back to the chat. I can only imagine what's been going on here. But let's see. Max says he's not interested in girls, no matter how good they look. I feel you on that. Joe Lucas says physical relationships can be a difficult scenario to navigate if you're already on a spiritual journey, since both of your paths need to merge naturally. Yeah, that's true, but it's also the beauty of that is that it does happen naturally. So you don't really, you don't have to do anything. You just kick back and keep working on you, and, you know, keep vibing as high as possible and hope that that vibe draws in what you're looking for, if that thing does exist. Raheem says, why are you fasting hours and hours in its benefit? Well, it's purifying, and it's just when I'm fasted, especially dry fasting, it's just much easier to meditate. It's almost kind of like, you know, after one of those big breakthroughs and you have that state and you're there and it's super, you know, you're really vibing high and you're like in that mode. You know, in my experience, it's, even though it gets longer and longer, it's always officially eventually dwindled. But when I'm fasting, especially dry fasting, after about 30 hours, I enter that state anyways. Now it's maybe got a little bit of the discomfort of fasting with it, but I can meditate really easily and really get really deep into meditation, much, much, much deeper and much easier than in a non-fasting state when I'm outside of that extended residual thing of having like a breakthrough or whatever. Am I a competitive person, or have been in the past? I wouldn't say I am now, but in the past I would say that I was fairly competitive. You know, in some ways. I'm really honestly mostly competitive against myself. I'm always trying to improve whatever my, greatest achievement is. I'm always trying to outdo it. It's just, Joe Lucas says your lifestyle is very popular in Fairfield, Iowa. Well, I'll have to check out Iowa one day. Let's see, Shay Janowski, you got the good soil as well. The Lowell. Thanks, that answers my question too. Shay says that's good. Millie says what happened? It freezed for a minute. Oh no, hope we didn't freeze too much. Frankita and everyone on, blah blah blah. Everyone's talking to each other. Marie says, would you or Melanie say that something like past life traumas requires a different approach from what works for psychological problems? Something like this. Oh, everything is going to need a custom approach, but if you're going the most like extreme version, which is probably an important thing to mention right now, is that part of the reason why I'm on the fence about these spiritual broadcasts is because my way is not the easy way. Well, my way is the fast way. You know what I'm saying? The way that worked for me was factory reset. It was removing everything that was part of myself. Now, the other thing is that it was remembering everything that had already been removed as well. So there's like a thing there, it's just like, anything that you really love that you don't do for a long time and then you come back and do it again can be a trigger for something spiritual. But ultimately you have to make that space available first. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to empty the cup. You got to remove whatever it is from your personality, from your life, like whatever, if you want to have that like instant takeoff. But I'm saying that's not something that anybody like myself can really recommend or suggest that anybody does, because everything that the average person in society thinks that is important, or that society is built around, is basically everything that you're going to destroy and lose by using this method. So it's like spirituality would have to be the most important thing to you in life for you to be able to justify doing this, because it's going to literally burn everything to the ground around you. There's easier ways. You could do this the slow way. You can, if you're just seeking freedom, liberation from fear, which is the most important part of it all, and what most people really want from spirituality, it's not necessary to do what I've done. It's just that I tasted, I got to see what God actually is and what the reality of that is, and that was so intense and so profound to me that I was willing to burn everything else to the ground and destroy everything else about me and around me in order to taste that again. And then I luckily got to find out that it wasn't even about tasting it again. It was just about getting more of that, the different aspects of that, which also I would say, I don't know how I know this, but I have a feel every time that I've had one of these big upgrades, I've felt it related to a planet. You know what I mean? Like the first time with the light came in, like I felt something about the moon. When I looked down on the earth and like seen through everyone's eyes, I felt something about Jupiter. You know what I mean? Like when I had that whole burning Manipura thing, like I felt something about the sun. You know what I'm saying? And when I had the whole earth experience, obviously I felt something about the earth. So there's something to this, and like my theory or whatever, the way I understand it is that, God is the universe. You know what I'm saying? And everything inside the universe is conscious, and that those are different personalities and aspects of God. And so the spiritual process is about connecting with more and more and more of God, which happens by connecting with the planets one at a time. Or maybe it's possible for somebody to do more than one at a time, but I'm just saying that's how it's gone for me, is that I feel like every time I connect with a different astral body, I get infused with a different understanding. So, Ryan Khan says, what a great lesson. Millie Sanchez says, little steps for great results. Welcome, Noi. Millie says, thank you for opening up to us. Let's see. Night of the Brotherhood, welcome. Sorry, guys, I'm looking for some. I know that was like a long rant, so I'm trying to catch up on the chat here. Shade Janowski says, Hawks Bruce, your sharing and vulnerability is honored and appreciated. You totally resonate and understand with what you've shared. Congratulations for all the beautiful work you're doing and have done. Thank you so much. I love that people do understand and that they actually do get it. And like also too, it's like it really is. It takes a lot to like admit how much is being sacrificed for this journey. You know what I'm saying? And it's not something that, I expect everybody to understand. Most people think that like my old career and the things that I did before and the women and the money and all that, like they cannot possibly imagine that anything could be more important than that. And it's also extremely hard to explain to someone like why all those things that I just mentioned, which is for most people the most important thing, are not just less important than what I've experienced spiritually, to me at least, but that they're actually a negative, like they stop, they get in the way, they take up too much room inside you. You know what I'm saying? Like ultimately, if you like whatever is you can remove, you know what I'm saying? Like a vacuum cannot exist. Like it has to fill with something, and that thing that it fills with is God. Whatever you can remove for yourself makes space for God to come and fill that space. So the closer you become to a blank is the closer you become to God. And that's the way that I see it. So to me, anything, it's like I make a huge, huge, huge sacrifice in this journey in my life for this little fucking hairy dude over here. You know what I mean? But, that's the only one that I'm making because it's one that I make upon, that's based upon virtue. You know what I mean? Everything else that's not based on virtue, I find it to be a valid place to snip and cut. Norm Deviant, has anybody in your inner circle, past or present, have told you that they maybe experience symptoms of schizophrenia? If so, how do you respond to that? Well, that's a really tough question. My best friend died of schizophrenia. You know, the actual cause of death was suicide by cop, but yeah, real schizophrenia, as I've experienced it, of having to deal with that, it's tough. It's tough. You know, I don't know. I wish I could say that I knew how to respond to that, but I tried to respond to that at one point. Maybe I was a lot less wise then, but you know, I think every situation could be different, so I wouldn't try to make a group remedy for that. But whatever responses that I had, or my friend's family had, or any of our friends had, was completely unsuccessful. And there was no way to stop it. So I don't really know, but I do also believe, though, that you know, just based upon my own experiences and stuff, like having a spiritual awakening feels like becoming schizophrenic at first. And realistically, if I would have had this happen in any other order or anything, it might have been harder for me to grasp it as what it is, because it was really honestly only based upon the fact that I would have these experiences and that I didn't know anything about them, and that I would be able to find other mentions of the same thing happening to other people, or other similar experiences to other people, and I knew that we're not having a collective hallucination, especially when I wasn't even interested in the space to begin with. Of course, you know, it's like the Shakti thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, if I had been super into that or known anything about it, I would think that my mind just like fabricated that or whatever, maybe at some point. But since I had no knowledge of it or anything like that, and just come to find out afterwards that this is like a reoccurring thing in spirituality, it's so much more interesting. And I'm not saying that that's the case was with my friend, that he was going through a spiritual thing or not. You know, he smoked a lot of weed, and I think that maybe schizophrenia, you know, might, as I, you know, comparing what I knew then to what I know now, and what I've observed then to what I've observed now, is that I actually think that they are really like go hand in hand, in the sense of like, yes, schizophrenia is real, and it's not always a spiritual, you know, part of that process. But this is the reason why, like, say you need a guru, or that you should have somebody assist you and walk you through a spiritual awakening and things like that, is because, and you know, with the whole yoga thing, is that there's like these energy channels in your body, and once you wake them up, you can feel them very acutely. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not all just woo woo, like we read about this, oh, let's repeat. These are things that you can tangibly feel inside your body. You know, these chakras and things like that. If you wake them up, you can really feel them. But, you know, having like a partial awakening, or awakening Kundalini and things like that, that trigger like this broader scale, you know, I think of it like almost like a second puberty, which you have to like set yourself up for, and, you know, do a lot of purification if you want it to happen. But, you know, you go through this like spiritual puberty, and it's something that like can be dangerous. if these energy channels are partially blocked or unclear, or that you don't know how to clear them, or you don't know how to recognize certain symptoms. And so that's why, I'm hesitant to come talk about this, because I'm not telling everybody that they should do what I did. I'm saying, luckily, I innately was doing a lot of the things I think that you need to do, and that I was able to download like a lot of that information and work myself through the process, of self-realization, which is what you call that. But that's not for everybody. And I think that sometimes people, they start moving around energies inside themselves, and a lot of times that happens through drugs and things. People want to smoke weed or do DMT or mushrooms or whatever, things like that. Maybe they just bump their head, and that awakens something inside them. But if that energy can't move freely, it can cause like major problems. And I think that that's pretty much what causes schizophrenia, is this stuff starts moving around inside, and that circuit in their brain, the Ida Pingala Sushumna nadis or whatever, if those aren't flowing, it fucking causes all kinds of fucked up problems. And that's just my own theory. I'm not a medical professional. Nothing I say is intended as medical advice. But, it's important to keep in mind that everything spiritual is not, and this is something I had to learn more recently. Everything spiritual is not mental. It's not all psychology. It's not all mental health. It's not all devotion and things like that. Well, in a way it is devotion, but you have to also be devoted to yourself. You have to also take care of your physical container. You need to be in the best fucking health of your life. Okay? Now, if you're not in good shape or whatever, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't be spiritual. I'm saying work on it. I'm saying fractional improvements, not just mentally and everything else, on your body as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to shed your belongings and really go walk the walk and be an ascetic and all that stuff? Well, you better make sure that the place where you're actually going to live for all of your life is clean and tidy. And that's your body. You know what I'm saying? Purification. Not just mentally, but physically as well. Fast. Eat clean. Don't eat such a crazy variety of things. You know what I'm saying? Like learn what makes you feel like what. Eat this for like a week. I'm not a medical professional, but I'm just saying, eat whatever item for a week, see how it makes you feel. Switch to something else, see how that makes you feel. Oh, see what happens if you combine them together. Be a human experiment. Don't fucking count on men's health magazines or women's health magazines or health.com or WebMD or whatever the fuck bullshit that you're just reading with zero information regarding like where the science came from. The quoted experiments, they give you the details, whatever, and AI can write those to a level that you could never pick up on any kind of inconsistency there. Like, they can write that right now, no problem. Like, I can make any experiment say whatever the fuck I want to say and make it say it in a way that anybody who's not like a fucking 10-year PhD cannot read it and be like, yeah, this isn't a real experiment. No, there's no fucking way. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you should be doing is experimenting on yourself. See how things make you feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, be an inner alchemist. You know, the whole turn lead into gold alchemy thing, spiritual alchemy, that's what it's really about. It's fucking, it's working on yourself, self-improvement, purifying yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, people say, like, there's some they love to use nasty words to describe things that they don't want you to do. You know what I mean? The casino does it too. They say quit while you're ahead. You know what I'm saying? That's wrong. Don't quit while you're ahead. Keep going while you're ahead, because like I said, fucking, if we make it 10 times in a row, your 10 turns into 10,000, but 11 times turns into 20,000, and 13 times turns into 40,000. So you can see that this is why they want you to quit while you're ahead, because they don't want that fucking momentum to get going. Okay? You quit when you're fucking down. You know what I'm saying? It's not working for you. But that's the same thing in other things, like you know, having to do with a lot. I fucking lost my train of thought there, but you know, I'm going back to the chat. I forgot what I was talking about. Brenda says, talking noise. Maya's here. Norm says, hi, my ex once had told me I might have schizophrenia. Why? Because I told him that I see dreams every night. He used to see every year or so. He thought that it is normal, only his way. Yeah, see, that's crazy. But you know, physical, oh yeah, what I was saying before is like, it's the same thing with like words like cult or conspiracy theorist or homeless. You know what I'm saying? All the conspiracies turned out to be true, so those are just things they didn't want us to know about. Cults is anyone who realizes a connection with God, and it's not based upon one of the main religions that are set up to control the masses. And homeless is a dirty word that they say, that what they really mean is poverty and mental health problems and drug addiction. What they don't mention is that if you don't have poverty, mental health addiction, mental health problems, or drug addiction, that being homeless is actually being free, and that your home is really just a fancy cell. You know what I'm saying? That you have to go to work to pay for. You know, and then you can't just work and pay for it. You gotta also pay taxes. You gotta do all this stuff so that you can maintain your non-homeless status, when in reality, if you were completely healthy, fucking great shape, cardio, health is on point, zero addictions, you know what I'm saying, whatever, then even a meager income, and you would live 100 times or 1,000 times happier and better life than you would with all of the fucking stresses of having to go do a job that you hate, that you wouldn't want to fucking do no matter what, even if they pay you a bunch of money, but fucking 35-40% of that money is going to taxes. Big part of it's going to rent. Big part of it's going to your car. You know what I'm saying? Blah, 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 blah. They make all these fucking hurdles that you got to go to so that you keep going and falling into the trap of choose your own adventure slavery, I call it. But as long as everyone's working for this money that literally has zero value, you can't go trade it in for anything else. They change the value of it all the time. They're printing trillions of dollars to liquidate the total amount, and what makes it go down. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, what, you saved $1 million 5 years ago. If you would have held on to it through the whole pandemic and everything, you can literally buy like as much stuff now as you would have bought then for like $300,000. So that means you did $700,000 worth of work for free, for nothing. You're a slave. I'm not insulting anyone or anything, but it's just like, this is like the loophole and how they use these little tricks of English or whatever language to try to paint things in a negative connotation that are actually a positive. It's just not what they want you to do. They want you to fall into that trap. You know what I'm saying? When in reality, the only trap that you have to avoid is to be physically healthy and mentally healthy, unaddicted, and have some type of way to sustain yourself. It's not super complicated. It's actually so much less complicated than everything else that they try to get you to do and they sell you on, but it doesn't build the things that they want to build, which is weapons. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, it's the basis underlying of the global economy is actually all based upon war. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's just a slave, and anybody who's doing that consciously beyond what that they need to, meaning, like, you know what I'm saying, if you're doing more than what your life requires to survive and be happy and whatever, then you're actually just participating in the war. Because nothing in this world is as expensive as weapons. Like, there's nothing. There's no luxury, no underwater yachts, fucking whatever the fuck you can buy, billion, you know, properties, mansions, whatever. None of it is remotely as expensive as fucking weapons. And that's what the entire world and all the economies and everything is fucking based upon, is weapons and war. And so if you participate in that, you're a fucking part of the war. You know what I mean? So there's a fucking problem there too, virtuously. Now, of course, it's hard for us to survive in a world that doesn't really have much of a barter system anymore. It's all been replaced with fake fiat currency bullshit. But you can still minimize, and you can focus on the real riches, which is your inner alchemy, turning lead into gold. You know what I'm saying? Be the value. You, yourself, you're the value. Everything else is slavery and war. It's you. You're the thing that matters. You're the value. Let's see. Maya's doing dream diary. That's good. I like that. I see. You didn't seem to be into your own career for some time now, no? Yeah, I quit for 3 years after the pandemic, and I just did like a quick little comeback, and that lasted less than a year. Norm Deviant, if you have time, come and join Bruce's Telegram channel. Share your story with us. Yes, we would love that. Come join the Telegram channel, anyone who's missing out of that. Rakita says, I'm sorry you lost your best friend in such a tragic way. Yes, that was extremely difficult situation. Norm Deviant says, thank you so much for your honest response. I didn't know anything about your best friend. I apologize if I opened up old wounds. I completely agree on self-purifying and self-improvement. It was a long time ago, and, you know, it is what it is, you know. I wish I would have known then what I know now. I might have been able to do more, but this is part of the reason why, you know, self or virtue doesn't mean doing everything for everybody else and saving everyone else. It means self-improvement and being the best that you could be, because, you know, without even trying to do anything, if I would have achieved what I've done now, which was all self-improvement based, you know what I'm saying, I could have done more for that situation. I would have known better what I could do for that situation. You know what I'm saying? Even with all the resources that I had then versus now, I had a lot more then, and I would be able to do more now because I put in the work to, you know, to self-improve, you know. And the other thing is, for those people who actually are fucking total crazy psycho faces like me, who aren't going to listen to the whole, it's dangerous, don't fucking go diving in head first to the spiritual space unless you really want that, because I know there's some of you are that crazy and will do it just like I did. Just keep in mind, like, the reality of living in the moment and not living in the future or living in the past. Don't worry about what you had before. You know, you don't have to compare that to your moment now. Just focus on your moment now, make the best of your moment now, and understand that in the future it can be different. You know what I'm saying? And it could be a lot different. You know, there's a lot of truth to the whole takes 10 years to be an overnight success thing. And just really think about that on like a deeper level. Like, it's a catchy phrase to say, but it's also so fucking real. You know what I mean? Because, like, you know, my whole life has been like this. Every peak has been bigger than the last, but it never has stopped me from hitting the ground. You know what I'm saying? But I've learned to welcome it, because I know that hitting the ground means that my next big peak is coming, because that's the trend. It's just that this time I'm choosing to wait for it to happen naturally, to know it, to believe it, you know what I'm saying, to have faith in it, but without striving for it or trying for it. Maybe the blip on the bottom will be longer, but if the pattern holds true, maybe that longer blip at the bottom also equals an even greater, more magnified peak, you know. And in a way, you know, accounting for more than whatever basic things that I accounted for it before, like how much money I had, how many women I had, you know, how many cars I, you know, got to drive, how many places I got to travel to, you know what I mean? And now I can just look at it like, you know, like the most, you know, during that time, like that whole pandemic thing that happened, like it completely changed my whole thing, because my whole perspective, because my health was failing me. I thought I was literally dying. And at the same token, I shorted all the airlines going into the pandemic, and then I bought Moderna calls at $23. You know what I'm saying? So it's like throughout the whole pandemic, while everyone else was like making nothing, I'm bringing in 5,000 to 7,000 a day from doing nothing, typing a couple of things on the keyboard. Meanwhile, I think I'm dying because my fucking health was failing me for whatever reason. It really puts things into perspective, and that's like a big part of the whole thing too. These are like the parts that I can't necessarily say, you know, oh, I was chanting the Om and whatever, I became spiritually awakened. It's like, no, I actually had to go through things like 4 years in prison, like my health failing me while I was making more money than I ever made in my life, like fucking, you know what I'm saying, like a bunch of weird counter opposite, you know, getting yanked this way and that way, blah 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 blah, that showed me the other parts, not the parts that I've been shown in a spiritual way, but it let me learn in my own way of what it's like to be God, but in a different sense. Like, you know, we think of what it's like to be God in the ways of all the spiritual things that I just talked about, being able to see through and feel everyone's emotions and everything all simultaneously, these really supernatural things. But you got to remember that the most important part of being God, the most interesting part of being God, is the willingness to spawn as a human avatar and live a mortal life in a mortal body, even though you are the essence of all creation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that is the most savage and awesome thing that any consciousness can do. You are absolutely unlimited and limitless, and yet you choose to come here and live not just every amazing, beautiful, loving, awesome experience that we have on this planet, but you came here and you live every fucking horror story, every fucking war, every fucking tragedy, that you're also willing to experience all of those things, every fucking tragedy, right alongside every beauty. That is the most savage thing ever in comprehension. Like nothing compares to that. To be willing to have every single experience, not just of humans, even of fucking animals. You know what I'm saying? Like you're willing to be an insect. You know what I'm saying? You're willing to be everything, not just whatever. You're literally willing to fucking live a life at the bottom of the fucking a trench in the ocean, never fucking see light, and every other life form down there is some fucking scary monster with crazy fucking teeth and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like you're willing to have all these experiences simultaneously. You're willing to not just be the hyena, but you're willing to be the gazelle that gets fucking eaten alive. Like that is savage, but it's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing can teach more than that. You know what I'm saying? When you have everything at your fingertips, every possible experience, and you're striving, you know what I'm saying? You're, you know, not just a pleasure hound, but an experience hound. You want it all. You want to know everything. You have, like, what is the answer to that? Well, God came up with it, and it's to wipe all your memories free and to fucking go live in a mortal body and live a mortal life. You know what I'm saying? Where only if you know what I'm saying, you might have to do that 1,000 times, 10,000 times before you realize what you're actually fucking doing. And then you get that, and after earning that through 10,000 fucking lives, you get to finally have the experience of waking up and being like, oh wow, that's fucking awesome. And there's no changing the effect that has on you, because you get to see the whole world through different eyes. You get to fucking wake up and realize, like, wow, I was fucking scared of nothing. Like it was all just a fucking a thing. And I did it all. It's fucking beautiful. Okay? Listen, you guys, I gotta go. One second, I'm gonna read these last comments. Proact says, maybe your friend was a perfectionist, not schizophrenic. He said adios to imperfect world and showed the middle finger to us all, to leftovers. And you know what? I'm going to leave off on that, and that's exactly what he fucking did. He went and literally sat at a 7-Eleven. He ordered the fucking clerk out by gun. Broke open the beer cabinet. Sat on the counter drinking beers. And when he was done, he walked outside and fucking threw the middle finger, and that was it. You know what I mean? Anyways, much love to my boy Joey. I know you're up there for me. Much love to my boy Sam. Much love to all you fine people. And I'm gonna go. I will talk to you all very soon. I am going to schedule the next stream for this Friday at 9 a.m. And that's going to be, I might change it, but for now, Friday at 9 p.m., 9 a.m. is our slot for streaming. And I will try to throw some random ones in the mix in the meantime.